Personal finance is exactly that. It's personal and unique to your situation. So the last thing we all need is a traditional money expert insisting we all follow the same old school, rigid rules that just don't work for us. Whether you're just starting to manage your money, regardless of your age, or you want to hear another perspective on a money topic you already feel good about, this Latina covers it all. Welcome to the Check Your Money podcast, where on this season, I encourage you to be limitless. Is it better to rent or buy? Spoiler alert, there's no correct answer. We, at least the we that I represent, have been taught that homeownership is the American dream. But one man's or woman's dream can be another person's nightmare. It can also come at a cost that only you can decide whether or not it's worth. When I was younger, I was originally, I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, but we lived in Hoboken. We lived in, it was called applied housing. And we lived there, I don't know, till I was like 9 or something like that. And then we ended up moving into this Victorian house in Passaic, New Jersey. Like, humongo house. Like, I could literally do cartwheels in my bedroom. Like, don't feel sorry for me. But what I do remember is that before, or at least in my mind, before 9 years old, we were going on vacations. I had been to Disney maybe 3 times or something by then. We were going out to dinner at least once or twice a week. And once we moved into that house, the dynamic kind of shifted where my dad spent a lot of time working on projects, like a lot of time working on projects. I learned a lot from my father when it came to like home improvement and stuff, and like how to, like Hispanics say, meter mano, like put your hands in. I know how to change a toilet. I don't really like changing that little ring thing you're supposed to do on the bottom. But aside from that, you know, I do kind of have the gall, let's say, to kind of get into the home improvement thing. But again, that's only because I grew up watching my dad. And I grew up watching my mom mowing the lawn, you know, every weekend. And it was a huge lawn. So that kind of, like I said, just kind of came at a cost. And the cost was that time, you know, with the family. And again, this is the way I see it, you know, before I knew about money. Obviously, there's a money cost as well, but there's a time factor that really needs to be taken into account when you decide if you want to buy a house. Now, if you've listened to some of my other episodes, you'll know that I recently became a real estate agent, or it's been a little bit time now actually, but I'm now a real estate agent in the state of Florida, and I joined the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Greater Tampa Bay, which opens quite a bit to me, you know, opens up quite a bit. But one of them is, I had to Google, like, how do you say real estate agent in Spanish? Because, you know, like we do a lot of Spanglish stuff. So, one of the terms is agente de bienes raíces. Now I kind of have to say that like on purpose. But bienes is goods, property, or assets. That's what bienes stands for. Now, raíces, that was kind of interesting because I don't understand how that plays into real estate. But the direct translation of the word raíces is roots, which really made me think, where real estate is you planting roots. But not everybody wants to plant roots. Some people want to have wings. Some people want to be able to be flexible and go off and, you know, go from place to place or state to state, or, you know, just especially now where everybody's working remote, where you don't really have to worry about being in one place. You know, that's where this kind of country and this world really is changing to. You don't necessarily need roots in one place. Kids are learning virtually. I mean, it's a whole new thing now with this, you know, with the pandemic. So again, just thinking about it, do we need to establish roots? Because we've been taught that that's the American dream. Let me throw some stats. Home prices are going up at a rate of like 1.5% more because there's a shortage in inventory. So basically, chances are you put your house on the market, it's going to go, right? Chances are, again, everything is always generally speaking, but there's an inventory shortage right now. Now, in my opinion, part of that is because the interest rates are going down. So I know for me, I got a 2.7% mortgage interest rate, which I mean, back in the day, 4 or 5 was, oh my God, such a great deal. But interest rates have dropped about 3% as compared to a year ago. But since home prices are going up, what it means is the amount of the down payment needed is also up. So if you've got a, $250,000 house, 5% of that versus 5% of a $300,000 house is a different down payment. But what you're paying for mortgage interest, like I said, is a little lower. I don't want to throw too much math at you right now because I'm going to throw it at you later. But anyway, so Latinos are also outpacing other demographic groups in growth in home ownership and labor force participation. Now, what does that mean? We're all buying houses and we're all really getting into the job force at a faster rate than any other demographic group. In 2019, our home ownership rate increased to 47.5%, and we've increased for the 5th year in a row. We're also the only demographic group to record an increase over the last 5 years. So between 2019 and 2009 and 2019, Latinos, or Hispanics as it's captured, accounted for 51.58% of the net growth in U.S. home ownership. Now, I want you to pause me right now. All right. Yeah, I said it. Pause me. And I want you to Google Hispanics home ownership. You're about to blow your mind with article names like Future of the Housing Market, Resilience of Hispanic Homeowners, Hispanic Ownership at an All-Time High. Now, what am I saying? Am I saying because everybody else is doing it, you should too? Actually, no. As my new intro shows, personal finance is a personal thing. It's unique to your situation. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. If you want to own a home, great. If you don't, that's great too. Everybody has their, like I said, their own situation. But I'm going to help you figure out, how you can decide, or another thing, tool you can put in your bucket as to how you can decide. One way is to check your money, current and future. So if you're trying to decide whether to rent or buy, or between your current house and the one that one that you're looking into, you're going to have to do a little math. Sorry. So let's say you're renting. Get a little piece of paper out or a pencil, whatever. But you're renting, you pay $1,500 a month in rent for a 2-bedroom, and it's like 1,100 square feet. You pay an extra $125 for garage or parking or storage, whatever. Your electric bill, it's $100. Water's $25. Garbage pickup, let's say, is $25. Your renter's insurance is like $120 a year, so that's like $12 a month. Cable and internet is $200. All right, and this is all, I'm just making stuff up. Total housing, that means it's $1,862, right? So now you got a house that you're looking at. It's got 3 bedrooms, 1,500 square feet. It's $250K and you got to put 5% down. Your credit gives you a great interest rate, and so your principal and interest payment will be $1,200, right? And now this is just bits and pieces. Your electric is $125 because you've got more space. Your water is $40 because you have a lawn. Your homeowner's insurance is now $1,200 a year instead of $120, so that's $120 a month. You've got HOA, guys, stay with me, sorry. You've got HOA, which is $150 a month, but that includes your cable and internet and your garbage pickup. And let's say your property taxes is $400 a month. That's $2,035. So that's a difference of $173 a month, right? But you've got an extra room and the house is yours. As you pay your mortgage, your principal is decreasing. And even if the house doesn't go up in value, when you sell, you'll eventually get back your equity. Equity is the difference between what you owe on your mortgage and what your home is currently worth. So if you owe $150,000 on your mortgage and your home is worth 200, you've got $50,000 of equity. If you sell it for the 200K, then that equity minus the expenses associated with selling a house is yours. If you were renting, no equity. You just leave and that's it. But also, you just leave. You don't have to worry about trying to fix the house up or, waiting for the perfect buyer or, the open houses and the showings, which, for some people can be a little daunting. But you don't worry about any of that. You just leave, but you also don't gain any equity. Now, if you've got, maintenance, right? So let's just say you've got a plumbing issue. You've got to call somebody. If you own your house, you have to pay that expense. If you rent, unless, you shove something down the toilet or whatever. But if you rent, usually you make that call and you're all set. Okay. So, there's definitely some pluses and minuses to home ownership. But what they say is, you own it. You can sell it later. You could rent it out or you could pass it on to family members down the line. So that's what's called the generational wealth, right? So you've got your house, something happens to you, whatever, you pass it on to your kids and now they've got a house and they don't have to worry about living expenses other than, property tax and homeowners insurance. So again, this is part of the generational wealth that, we're all kind of, or a lot of us are seeking to create that really historically hasn't been a part of Latino culture. Okay, so that is the mentality, especially for our parents and grandparents, where they want us to have a house so that we have something to call our own and pass it down. Okay, that's what the generational wealth is, the big push for the generational wealth is. Now, the mortgage interest deduction. You may have heard about, but you can deduct mortgage interest. Well, that's sort of true. Technically, you can deduct the interest portion of your payment from your taxable income. The thing about this is if you're lucky enough to get a low interest rate, like what's available now, you may or may not get this benefit. Your total interest for the year would have to be more than the standard deduction. And the standard deduction for 2020 for someone filing head of household is $18,650. So unless you're paying more than that, but it's your house. So again, it's up to you. So now, of course, when I talk about taxes, renters don't pay property taxes, homeowners insurance, you should have renters, or maintenance costs. And these costs could really add up. I know people personally in New Jersey who are literally paying like 15 grand a year just in taxes. So you really need to consider where you want to be and what that tax situation is, because the tax situation could make or break you, honestly. Depending on how much you're making, I don't see, I think it's, I don't know. I can't see myself paying $15,000 a year in property taxes, but that's me personally. That's my personal situation. Okay. So if you're looking to build personal wealth, they say you should be looking at real estate. Well, here's something you may not have thought of. So you buy a house and now you've got all these expenses, right? Forget the mental part. Let's just look at the money. You've got all these expenses with a house. You could be renting and paying less. Like I just said, that $173. If you're paying less, what about taking that money and putting it in a Roth IRA? Increasing your 401k contribution. And you could increase your wealth that way. You could build your wealth that way by building up your retirement account. If you had a house, you wouldn't have that extra money to build up your retirement account. But now you've got a house. Now, again, I don't know if that's something you've thought of. It's definitely a new perspective for me, honestly. I heard or I saw someone kind of mention that on Instagram not too long ago, and it really got me thinking. Here we are again, just trying to pursue this American dream, but what about saving this money and just putting it into a retirement account, investing in stocks, you could build your wealth in other ways. It doesn't have to be real estate. That's the point I'm trying to make. You can build your wealth in other ways. If you happen to get into the housing market in around like the 2006 timeframe, people lost thousands. I mean, people lost their houses. People went under foreclosure. Mortgages went underwater. So buying a house isn't always the only way to build wealth. It could really screw you up, to say the least. Okay? So in the end, the rent versus buy comes down to your personal situation, like I said. There's that, what I talked about before, with the whole thing about the dinners and the vacations and all that kind of stuff. That's what's called an opportunity cost. So an opportunity cost is basically what you miss out on when you choose one alternative versus another. So you can look at the value of the time, let's say with your family versus, fixing a house all the time or going through the maintenance stuff and doing all that kind of stuff, versus this feeling of home ownership or versus building equity in a home. And only you and your family can decide that. I listened to a webinar not too long ago. And, when I talk about these traditional money experts with the box, that you're supposed to be in, they mentioned, this particular person mentioned, that they've always told people you need an 8-month emergency fund. And for years they've been, pushing that on people, 8-month emergency fund. And now, of course, because of COVID, now they're changing it to you need more. Well, here's what I'm saying. Screw the box. You need what you need. Screw what they're telling you need. If you feel you want 8 months, do 8 months. If you want 2 years, do 2 years. There's no box that we all fit in. And I think that is really the key to my new season, is just showing you that there's another way that goes out of this box. Stop trying to live in this damn box that the traditional money experts are putting you in. They also suggested, don't buy a house unless you have at least 20% to put down in case the value goes down. What the hell is that? First of all, let me just explain to you this is what scares most people who don't own a house from owning a house or from thinking that they can't own a house. On a $250,000 house, which is kind of like the median sort of, depending on where you live, $20,000 is $50,000. Bro, how are you supposed to have $50,000 to put down on a house? Have, what they say, 2% you should have in maintenance. Have an emergency fund. Well, of course we're not going to want to buy a freaking house. Of course. Because you look at a $50,000 down payment, you've got closing costs. Hold up. So you've got, let me, it's funny because I didn't even really think about saying all this, but you've got 20% you need to put down. That's 50 grand. Then you got closing costs, which I don't know. Let's just say that's $10,000. Then you have to have your maintenance. That's 2% of that 250. Then you have to have an emergency fund. Turn the freaking podcast off because you're not buying a house, right? No, guys. You can do this. I plan on discussing next on my next episode how it's possible to get a mortgage with no 20% down. If you've got 20% down, great. But if you don't, you can get a piece of this real estate pie if that's what you want. And I'm going to show you how. So I thank you guys for joining today. I'm still going to do the check your knowledge in a second, but I really just want to take a moment to really thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for being a part of this journey of mine where I really explore breaking the rules. Screw the rules. Screw the old school. Do what you want. Have wings. Have roots. Do whatever you want. When it comes to money, when it comes to job, when it comes to life, when it comes to career, when it comes to whatever you want to do, guys, let this be your year. Let this be your time. Don't put your stuff aside for anybody. Except maybe your kids. I don't know. I kind of, I held back for 20 years on a lot of stuff that I wanted to do. Or even just allowing myself to think that I could do something else because I wanted to make sure I was there for my kids. Again, my personal opinion, don't regret one bit of it. But now that, I've got the whole empty nest thing going on, it's my time. It's my turn. I can be supportive and be myself. And that's what I encourage you to do. Check your money, check your life, check your dreams, check your goals, check it all. Check your knowledge. I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I got inspired, so I went with it. I hope you guys don't mind, and I hope you're still listening. But so check your knowledge. I came across this great link. It's from smartasset.com. So if you go on smartasset.com/mortgage/rent-vs-buy, it has this awesome calculator. And it will show you whether you should rent or buy based on the place and based on your personal situation, honestly. So it was really cool. I know, again, it could be overwhelming to figure out what you should do about your living situation from a financial perspective. So this calculator is a great guide that'll tell you whether you're better off renting or owning. And also they have this really cool chart where it shows the places where it makes more financial sense to buy versus rent. So, just pass this along to others or use it yourself. But again, it's really cool. You plug in the location, your monthly rent. So let's say you're currently renting. So your monthly rent, the price of the home you're considering, your marital status to calculate the amount of taxes you'd pay by renting or owning, and your pre-tax income. That's it. It's simple. So after you plug this in, you'll get this really cool result, which will actually show you how long you'd have to stay in the house to make it better financially than renting. And again, it's just a guide, but just really cool. It, like I said before, it depends on where you live. So for example, and generally speaking, if you're in New York, you'd have to stay in your house like 18 years for it to be financially better than renting. If you're in the Midwest, like Chicago or Minneapolis, or even in the South, like Tampa, Florida, or Atlanta, it's more like 4 years. Philly and Dallas hover like around 3. And again, property taxes can be a huge component. You really need to just, put this into your calculations as far as how much you're paying in property tax. Because when you figure, your mortgage and your interest or whatever is going to be, let's say $1,200 or even $2,000, throw in another, maybe even $1,500 for property taxes, depending on the location. And that, that might be a make or break for some people. But just check out that link. It was super cool. They actually have a lot of great resources on their website. But if you're looking to figure out rent versus buy, that's your way. Or at least it's one way. Thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate your support and welcome your feedback. You can do that by rating, liking, and sharing. I also invite you to check out my website, checkyourmoney.today. You'll find links to my YouTube channel, upcoming blog, and so much more. Don't forget to check your money and be limitless. The information provided in the Check Your Money podcast, associated social media accounts, and website is intended solely for the personal, non-commercial use of the user who accepts full responsibility of its use. While we have taken every precaution to ensure that the content of the aforementioned is both current and accurate, errors can occur. We accept no responsibility or liability for any errors or omissions in the content. The information provided by Check Your Money and its affiliated entities is general in nature, provided for educational purposes only, and should not be considered to be legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. In all cases, you should consult with professional advisors familiar with your personal factual situation for advice concerning specific matters before making any decisions.